I'm used to having such a big voice, I don't need one. I keep forgetting about the Zoom. Sorry, Zoom folks. We are to the vendor presentation point. This is an opportunity for our vendors to give you the stories about the people who make the things they represent, whether it's themselves or other artisans. And they each get 8 minutes. I'm going to have an alarm go off. They're going to grab their things and run off the stage, and the next person's going to run up, and we're going to stay on clockwork, okay? So there's the deal. Our first vendor is Bex from Hill Creek.
Hello, I'm short. So I'm Bex Oliger. Oliger, no N, like my name tag had an N in it. I don't know what it says in the main thing, but there's no N. Anyway, I'm from Hill Creek Yarn and Fiber, and I'm Carolee Brackheiser's daughter of Hill Creek Fiber Studio. We laugh and joke and say I'm the daughter company. But we are actually two separate entities because about 20 years ago, my knitting students, I'm more knitter. Right at the microphone. Okay. So anyway, my knitting customers were taking over my mom's weaving studio. So I opened a brick and mortar store in Columbia, Missouri, where we're from the knitters. But then over the years, I started carrying everything she had. And I also had spinning and weaving and felting and dyeing, natural dyeing. I also have a degree in cultural anthropology myself. And so I love why people do things and how people do things and keeping the arts alive. So in my shop, not only do I support fair trade, I have about 5 different fair trade companies I work with, mostly natural dyers. I do a lot with indigo, mud resist indigo. I do a lot of natural dyed things from India, also from Laos and other places like that, some from Peru. But I also support American cultural preservation. So I teach at places like John C. Campbell Folk School. I teach natural dyeing there. I teach continuous strand weaving there. I also teach knitting, advanced knitting. I did a class, a week-long class on how to knit with 2 colors in 4 different ways, and that was a lot of fun. But my brother makes the continuous strand looms. My mother wrote the book on it, and she'll tell you all about that tomorrow, I'm sure. So I travel around the country and try to promote those, as well as looms and tools, woodworking tools from about 7 different independent woodworkers in America. I support dyers from 6, 7 states, independent hand dyers. And several of them, most of them, this is what they do for a living. So they're trying to keep the heritage alive themselves of how to do these things. And so even though it's not from another country, it's still international textiles because we are a nation. So we count. And tomorrow at the fashion show, I will be wearing a skirt and hemp socks that were naturally dyed in a very interesting ice dye technique by a friend of mine in Arkansas. And she and her family travel the country like we do, going to wool festivals and knitting conferences and weaving conferences, and selling her yarns and natural dyed clothing. And that she's one of the ones I support. And I also carry my mom's natural dyed yarns and several, trying to think other things I carry. But I do have my own natural dyed yarns I do carry as well. I have a few in the booth with me. And then when I teach, I always wind up with a whole bunch of yarns, just like one-offs. I don't dye yarn for people and dye lots, and you can call me and order it. You know, it's whatever I have you can buy from, okay? Because I don't have time to dye all the time. And so when I teach classes, a lot of times I have a lot of leftover stuff, and then you can get some nice natural dyed yarns from me. So I'm talking too fast, I guess, because do anybody, I mean, I don't know how much time I have. So.
You still have 3 minutes and 49
Okay, so I will slow down. So I am also a knitwear designer, and one of the things, and I'm gonna step away from the mic for just a second so you can see the sweater I have on. So this particular sweater is called Climbing Clematis, and it is done in all in one piece. If you're a knitter, I don't like to sew, which is really strange for somebody who's so into textiles and fabrics. But I love to knit, I love to weave, I like to crochet. I don't like to sew. So this is all done in one piece, and the shoulders are knit together as you go. So there's no sewing, no seaming, no nothing. But anyway, that's the type of thing I like to, the story of, shouldn't really be the story of me, but it is kind of, the designing story of my business, that every pattern I write is because someone said I couldn't do that. And like I have a double knit Mobius cowl because somebody told me I couldn't double knit in a Mobius. Watch me. And they're all teaching patterns also. So if I'm doing a technique that somebody said I couldn't do, obviously there's not a whole bunch of instruction out there on how to do that. So I try to teach you how to do a technique maybe you've never tried before in every one of my patterns. So, and most of the kits for my patterns are all naturally dyed by my mother. And anyway, so I'll talk a little bit more about my fair trade since I got a couple more minutes. One of the companies I support is Senya from India, and they actually have 6 different cooperatives in India of women mostly that do not only the spinning and the dyeing, and they do ikat dyeing and mud resist dyeing, but they do all of the weaving and the garment production, and they all cooperate together, and then the money gets distributed evenly, but it also goes to, and you're probably familiar with this with some of the groups you work with, it goes to the schools and the hospitals, and the whole village gets a big boost from these people in their work. So it's what we want to promote and support, not just everywhere else in the world, but here in the United States. So.
Thank you, Bex. Next up is Ricky from Hoon Arts.
Hi, I'm Ricky Quintana. Unlike, I think, everybody that's spoken this morning, I fell into this world of textiles with no experience, other than what my grandmother taught me as a kid. I was a retired attorney and simply volunteering to host visiting professional exchange delegations when I discovered that in Tajikistan, they had beautiful handicraft artwork, but no one in the US was working to build a market in the US. So I stood up at the farewell dinner and said, well, I'll do it. No problem. Thank God I didn't know what I didn't know. And that journey began in October of 2014. I now work with several artisan groups in 3 different Silk Road countries, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and Kyrgyzstan. 8 minutes is not enough to talk about all of them. So I thought I would talk about Munira Akilova, who is my embroidery expert from Tajikistan, my Tajik daughter, and the first artist that I really started building a personal relationship with. And as I was listening to Linda's talk this morning, the parallels between her life as an artist and Munira's life are so dramatic. It just reiterated what inspires me about the work is the ability to bring people together through our artwork. Munira is in her mid-40s now. She was trained as an economist. She spent the first 14 years of her professional career teaching economics at the university, got very sick, and decided that she was going to leave the university, and the only thing that inspired her to keep living was her embroidery work. And she decided to devote the rest of her life to embroidery. Her grandparents were artists, but she did not learn the art at home. She grew up during Soviet times. Her grandparents, like many traditional artists in the Soviet Union in Central Asia, were sent to labor camps or prisons for practicing their art, because the idea was you go work for the factory and Moscow tells you what you're going to produce. So she learned to embroider in what we would call home ec class. She was inspired by her first trip to the US as a high school student when they visited the Pine Ridge Reservation and met with an artist who was explaining the colors and patterns used in their artwork and the meaning behind them. And the light bulb went off, and she went back to find out what the patterns and colors from her cultural heritage meant. And her first professional foray into the arts was doing the field research for the first catalog of embroidery patterns and ornaments of the Zarafshan Valley of Tajikistan, which also runs into Samarkand and Bukhara. They're part of that same valley, the Silk Road Valley. And she's been doing, since that time, she's grown into a real modern Renaissance woman. She is a designer, she's a teacher, she has been, she's now in high demand all over Central Asia to both teach about the economics of running a handicraft business, as well as exporting to Europe and the US, and design techniques. She is an individual artist in her own right. A few years back, she won the top award at the Uzbekistan Artistic Fair for her embroidery, which really pissed off a lot of the Uzbek embroidery community, because they think they have they own the embroidery. As it turns out, Uzbekistan, the areas where embroidery is so prevalent, Bukhara and Samarkand, they're ethnically Tajik, as are the Tajiks of Tajikistan, but the borders were drawn to divide and separate, as most authoritarian countries like to do. In Uzbekistan, they embroider primarily with a tambour hook, which, if you've never seen it, is like a teeny tiny, very sharp crochet hook where you punch through the fabric and it creates a continuous chain stitch. Munira's embroidery is the more traditional Suzani style, which is just needle and thread, every stitch is individual. The primary Suzani stitch is called bozma, which is very similar to the couching stitch used in Kolcha embroidery in the Southwest. She is also dedicated to cultural heritage preservation. She takes a lot of her patterns from museum pieces, and not only museum pieces, but because there's a market in the US for geometric patterns that is broader than the floral patterns, she has created collections and individual designs taken from geometric patterns from architecture, from the golden age of architecture in that part of the world. She is also working with a small village where there's a group of ladies who are part of her team. They do the embroidery work for her company. There are 2 companies she manages, but she's also working to try to find funding so that those ladies can create a local museum, because they were a stop along the Silk Road. She's a consultant on numerous projects. She's also a certified tour guide and accompanied me on the tour that we just concluded last week. And just a few things to show off. This is a pillow cover that she designed incorporating the Ikat theme into embroidery, if you can see. Linda talked about the need to meet the market demands. This is an iPad cover because there's a market. And then this one, the Ikat is woven in Uzbekistan, but they have a hard time getting it next door in Tajikistan. But because we were visiting my Ikat weaver, we bought the fabric, and during the 9 days we were in Tajikistan, after we bought the fabric, she managed to create the 6 new Ikat kimono jackets. That's it. Thanks.
Now, how do I turn this thing off? It doesn't want to turn off. You know, I'm not the most brilliant when it comes to these things. Oh, I'm just going to turn it off. There we go. Okay. Thank you, Ricky. Next up is Jenny from Guatemala.
Excuse me, as I set up a little here. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Jenny Juarez. I'm here today as a ward member, as a representative for Weaving for the Future cooperative that I'm a part of, and as a backstrap weaver of Guatemalan textiles. A little context about me and my background. I started weaving when I was entering high school. My mother is my teacher, and she started weaving since she was 7 years old. For her, weaving was a tradition and something that was a norm in her community. And she continues weaving to this day, continues learning new things, and she wants to continue that tradition to her daughters, to my sister and I. And now my sister and I would go with her and learn new things and do demonstrations in terms of backstrap weaving. I started out weaving mainly because my mom weaved. I grew up watching her weave. I grew up wearing Guatemalan textiles. It was just the whole Guatemalan textile was just deeply rooted since I was born. So for me, weaving was just something natural that I was gonna learn to do. And I also do, both my mother, my sister and I, we do it in memory of my grandmother. And sadly enough, she passed away before she got to see me weave, so I like to believe she is witnessing my art. But a little context for that. And shortly after I started weaving, I joined the Weaving for the Future cooperative, an initiative done by the Friends of Ixchel Museum. I met Yolanda, who is a representative for the museum, and she wanted to bring together the community of weavers from Concepcion Chiquirichapa, which is my family's hometown, to do weaving demonstrations, bring awareness to the Guatemalan culture, and to create school programs and events that the general public could enjoy. We've been doing it since, I think, 2015, 2016. Around that time is when we started out, and we've been doing it since. And we've really come a long way. We've And we've attended many events. We work with kids, we work with adults. We've created activities that's based off Guatemalan textiles. And we create products, both that is like literal parts of the outfit, like the huipil, the faja, the corte. We sell that, or we make that. We also, just to adapt to the market, we start kind of seeing what else we can sell to those who may not necessarily be able to want to buy like parts of the outfit or the full outfit, but maybe something that connects to the Guatemalan textile. So my mom makes aprons because she loves to cook, and we have an abundance of cortes, which is a skirt. So we kind of want to be able to use that material. So she makes aprons. We make bags. And a bunch of other things, like each member, each weaver in the cooperative make a whole different assortment of products. But we just are here today mainly just to bring awareness to the cooperative and just so you guys can see the many colorful textiles that's in Guatemala and I guess more specifically connected to us. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person up is Marilyn. There we go. Thank you.
I'm Marilyn Murphy. I'm with Cloth Roads, which some of you know me as that, and some of you know me with Andean Textile Arts. So I'm going to speak about Andean Textile Arts and the weaving communities that are part of the Center for Traditional Textiles of Cusco, Peru. You may know Nilda Cayanapa and the projects that they've been working on since they became a nonprofit in 1996. With Nilda was quite young and was reintroducing natural dyes to the weaving communities at that time. They've gone on from her village in Chinchero, which are now there's 10 weaving villages throughout the whole highlands that are part of CTTC. These weaving villages are support, hard to know at any given time, but approximately 500 weaving families throughout the Cusco highlands. So significant impact. Andean Textile Arts formed as a nonprofit in 2000, and I'll talk about that more tomorrow during my presentation at 5 o'clock. But one of the, our mission for Andean Textile Arts is really focused on, dedicated to supporting the people and communities of the Andes in their efforts to preserve and revitalize their textile traditions. As such, here in the United States, we do quite a bit of outreach, education, support, so people learn about the weavers, their techniques, their heritage. We sponsor many of their programs through grants on a yearly basis. In fact, most of our budget, 85% of the money we raise, goes specifically for grant projects. Some of those are the Young Weavers groups. We have a program that is a Zoom program now called Traditional Textiles of the Peruvian Highlands that a lot of weavers groups will participate in. You can rent it and show it to your groups. It's available all the time. We have textile talks on a quarterly basis, and we also have tours that we've been able to resume to Peru and now Bolivia as well. The revitalization projects that we have supported through grants for many years, the current one that's been being worked on for probably at least 5 years, is revitalization of pre-Columbian techniques, not all weaving, but the one I'm going to show today is called Tikia Watai, And this is one of the current pieces. And for those of you that may be familiar with Nazca, Paracas period textiles, this is the weavers in the two communities of Sayac and Pitumarca studied this work. They saw pieces at the Amano Museum, they saw online, and they knew this was part of their textile heritage, and they worked for years to revitalize it. So for those of you that might know scaffold weaving, discontinuous weaving, it's, here's a simplified version. Okay, it's not sewn, this is woven, no selvage edges, right? 4 selvage weaves. And the weavers took this technique and applied it to creating larger scaffold pieces. But that wasn't enough because the other community in Sayac were revitalized the ikat, which was also a pre-Columbian technique. So this was their revitalization a number of years ago, was the ikat, and the other communities was scaffold or discontinuous warp and weft. And so they got together and said, we'll teach you how to do this, we'll teach you how to do that, because we together want to do this. And so over the last number of years, all of the 10 weaving communities are learning how to do this and sharing what they know and their knowledge of being able to do this pre-Columbian technique. They're doing amazing, amazing work. This was shown last year at the International Folk Art Market in Santa Fe. They're going to have even more fabulous ones this year, I'm certain of it. They've been doing large-scale bedspreads. It's really ponchos. We were there about a year and a half ago, and the young weavers are learning it as well because they have such nimble fingers, and they can tie really, really tight designs. And how am I on time? 2 minutes left. Okay, so just to briefly explain, there is Andean Textile Arts has a blog that I just wrote on the Tiku Watai and Nilda Kayanapa. There's a video of Nilda talking about this project, so you can go on AndeanTextileArts.org and see that. But for those that may not be familiar with the weaving process, the scaffold weaving, so first they're just working with natural colored, no dyeing, no pattern, and they have to weave the scaffold type weaving first, take it apart, do the tie dyeing, and then take those pieces and put them all back together, but they're woven back together. There's no seaming that's going on here at all. It's an incredibly complex process, and it's all naturally dyed on top of it. So you want to talk time and resource? I mean, this is incredible. And then just one other revitalization piece, which you can't see, but you can come in our booth and see it. This is Paracas looping technique, and for those of you that know pre-Columbian, where they have these figures that dance all around the edge of a cloth, they have revitalized this as well. And they are now making dolls, with bent back figure dolls, and it's another piece. But it's a constant, they're having, because they forget, they may not do it for a while, and then they have to be retrained, and then they go on. But there's 5 different revitalization projects that ATA has supported through grants for many years now. So, thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn. That was, I'm gonna have to come to your booth and figure out how they do that. Thank you. Okay, next up is our lovely board co-chair, Rocio.
Hi. So, my name is Rocio Mena. I'm from Mexico. I live in Mexico City. So, I will tell you a little bit about my story and my inspirations. So, I'm a fashion designer, but I realized very quickly that what I really love are textiles and natural dyes. So, right now, I'm a natural dyer, and yeah, I create different products around colors. And well, for me, I like to think that natural dyes are like alchemy and magic on earth. And that's what I really like to share in my products, like all the legends and stories behind them. Because I feel like, I don't know, like every time that I am dyeing, it's just like I connect with the color and with the indigo vat, and it just feels like it can be like so healing to be doing that. And I think that a lot of people here feel the same way because you have talked about it before. So I just like that, to share that with people, all the stories. And I also like to share like stories with my products. I don't know, I like to name every one of them, to give them a name, and there's like a story that I write for each one of them. So I don't know, I like to think of them as friends. So every time you just, I don't know, you are maybe stressed on traffic or in your car, or I don't know, or something is not going well in your life, you can just open your bag or your whatever and just remember like the important things in life, like nature and ancestral colors and yeah, and things like that. So these are, for example, this is an example. I have this bag here. So, well, this one has like a phrase inside, and this is like the story behind it. So I'm just going to read, for example, the first paragraph is like, this is called We Are Stars. So it's like the reflection of the stars in the sky, a crystalline firmament, an infinite mirror, our own reflection, because we are all made out of stars. And well, yeah, just like different things like that. So yeah, so as you can see, they are all indigo dyed. I also dyed leather. So I dyed the leather with indigo. For example, this one is all indigo dyed. And I also make pleats, like a pleating technique on leather. But I don't have, well, I had some purses, bags that had some pleating in the middle, but I don't have, well, Susan has one over there. So that's a technique that I learned in Japan. I was in Japan for 3 months learning from a sensei who taught me shibori and indigo techniques like tsukumo and other types of, yeah. So yeah, I just like to mix all these different like knowledge I had over these years and share like just like the magic of indigo natural dyes and textiles with other people. So thank you.
Theo, before you go, could you share a little bit about dyeing your leather? Because I think most of us are more textile dyers. Could you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah. Oh. Well, dyeing leather, I don't know. That's something, because I've been doing leather purses for a while, so that always intrigued me, how I could dye leather. So, yeah, there's not really like, I didn't learn like from anyone. I just like started experimenting and seeing which types of leather could work better than others, and if they needed to be, I don't know, like with certain like finishes. I don't know. Yeah. So yeah, it was just like experimenting, really, and the pleating part, I learned that in Japan, the pleating the leather. But yeah, sorry, I don't have any more information about that. But
Thank you. Thank you,
okay,
Rocio.
thank you.
Okay, and last up are Tara and Sam. I don't know if you're both going to present or one.
I'm just going to introduce Sam. Stand out for something. Okay. So I have a few things I brought anyway. Not sure if they'll balance here. So in 1986, we were tourists in Peru, and we had heard of Taquile Island in Lake Titicaca, and it's on the Peru side, just outside the Bay of Puno. And we knew that they housed people with families, and so we were prepared for that. And we were going to stay 2 nights. And what happened was when we arrived at our host household, our host Felipe laid out his textiles and he said, I'm looking for an agent in the United States to sell these. And in 2 years, I want to go to the United States and teach a class at the university. Because some people had done that in France, and so he had this dream. And our first reaction, we're potters, was, oh my gosh, it's so hard to sell crafts. You could never do it in 2 years. But then we're sleeping up there at approximately 12,600 feet in elevation, almost 13,000 feet, and we can't sleep. And we start talking, and we go, we could do it if we bring them to craft fairs where we sell our pottery, where the artists must be present because they're really high-quality fairs. So that's what we did. That first trip, one of the things was Felipe was really skilled and knowledgeable about the plant life, and I remember him showing us lichen at these beautiful old ruins and how there were just a few little lichen around. And one of the things that the kids would do, or maybe adults as well, is they would have little dye, natural dye samplers. But what I noticed then, it's been almost 20 visits in 38 years, the lichen has grown back because it is an island and they have a really strong tourist industry. A lot of, so the natural dyeing has, there's still some people who do natural dyes, especially with flowers and things, but it's too limited an environment to be able to natural dye with the local products there. So they tend not to do that anymore. So in 1988, we returned and we brought Felipe and Sylvia to Colorado. We sold their work at art fairs. They taught a workshop in Taos, New Mexico, and a little one-day thing at a weaving shop here in Denver, up here in Denver. And one of the things that happened is the way they, techniques. The men knit, traditionally, a lot of women knit now, but the men would do the knitting, and the men had a pedal loom, very simple for yardage, that they would weave the women's skirts and shirt material and stuff like that. Anymore, they mostly buy that, but the women's looms were staked to the ground. So here we are doing demonstrations, the craft fairs on pavement. We have a little carpet for them, but you can't stake it to the ground. The workshop in Taos, I remember working out a design where we made 2x4s or 1x4s probably, with holes in it to imitate stakes on the ground, a frame. And when we went back in 1996, 8 years later, the first thing, I remember designing this thing. We worked together and made this design. We went back 8 years later, these looms are everywhere. And I said, oh my gosh, the loom. And somebody said, oh yeah, we've always had these. We started using them a lot more after they came back from the United States. And I just went, oh Oh, good. I don't need credit for that, but I'll tell you anyway. So what's nice about that is they will warp the loom on the ground, but then they roll it up and they can bring it upstairs. The other thing that we saw in 1986 was that they didn't have lights. They would take a really nasty lead-acid car battery, carry it on a hike an hour to the boat, and it'd be a 3-day trip to the city to charge it and bring it back so they could have lights for 3 or 4 nights, maybe for the party. So we knew about solar. So when we came back in '88, we brought the first solar electric panel. It was a little 9-watt panel. We hooked it directly to the radio, which you're not supposed to do, but we did. The music played. My sister was with us on that trip. She snapped a photo. Everyone's face is about ready to completely bust open with a smile. My gosh, you can play the radio with the sun. And when we then came back in '96, so it was an 8-year time when a lot of stuff happened in our own lives, we weren't able to come back. They had a project with, for people to be able to buy their systems on time with a bank loan, a 5-year payment program, a 2-year payment, various payment programs, so they could have solar electricity. And for what we started doing then was bringing, well, I made a suitcase. I made a case to go around a box that would hold 2 40-watt panels and be able to check it. Smuggled. We smuggled solar panels into Peru, and because we didn't want the, we didn't want to have to pay tariffs or anything. So, so we did that for a few years, and little. It was, I will say, it was an idea whose time had come. There were already projects out and about for solar electricity. And after a few years, we started seeing solar stores in Puno and in Juliaca, and we quit bringing panels. We were able to buy them in town. It would have happened without us, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 years earlier than it would have happened without us. Okay, so, I knew it was going to be too long a story. So we become godparents. We cut the child's hair when they're very young, and we have all of our godchildren have the same grandmother, so we have an extended family. We were padrinos for a wedding. We're now mama and papa for that couple, so we're grandparents. We have been helping our older kids have some college. This is the knitting of the men's. Amazing technique on the wrong side. Come by the booth and look at the wrong side if you're a knitter. And this is actually a big coca purse that would be used like at Easter for the authorities would go around giving coca away. Coca is a very important part of the culture. We exchange coca leaves almost like a handshake. We pick coca leaves for imbue them with our prayers, and then either burn or bury them. Easter is a coca leaf ceremony to pay the Mother Earth for the whole year, and we've been in all carnival and all kinds of things. This is a potato sack, selvage woven, potato sack. It never got used for potatoes. We grabbed it in time. Now they pretty much use, other kind of stuff, plastic woven. And I've got this scarf here too. We have some very old things with much simpler weaving patterns, and then you'll see the really modern things. You'll see a young woman will go, "Mom, why do you do it that way? Come on, be more," they'll coach mama to be a little more dense in her figures or not put little bars between each one. And, those good eyes and nimble fingers someone talked about of the young weavers are really quite impressive. And look forward to seeing you. Come see our stuff. Thank you.
Okay, that's our presentations for today. Tomorrow, the other vendors will have an opportunity to share their stories. We do have a few more minutes, so if anybody has any questions for any of the vendors, you're welcome to do that. Yes, the lady in the back there, I can't remember her name.
Let me bring it so that the live streamers can hear your question.
Hi, Marilyn. What do they call ikat in Peru? Watai. W-A-T-A-Y. Watai. Doesn't sound like hospe. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for our vendors? Yes, Sarah?
Hi, this is a question for Marilyn. Could you please say a little bit more about scaffold weaving and, or were you going to have that tomorrow? Because I'm not familiar with the term and I wasn't sure what you meant when you used it.
Hold that, Lindsay, because I've got to do. So how many of you are weavers here? Okay. How many you know backstrap weaving, right? So when you're setting up your warp, you have a person sitting here. They're doing this, on warping pegs on the ground, throwing their yarn balls back and forth. So one color, this person is one color, this person is one color, and they join in the middle. So when they're winding the warp, this color goes around a bar. They have a center bar. They join it, and they take it back. This person, so they're going from two different directions. And so during the weaving process, they're doing similar. They weave from, one. So this is warp-faced. So you're not seeing the weft here at all. But they have to join by an interlock. This is a natural interlock because of the way the warp was wound, but they can then weave by turning the loom, right? Because it's backstrap, so you can weave from one direction, turn the loom, weave from another direction, so it becomes a 4 selvage cloth. So that's the basic. Did that help? Yeah, it does. I'd love to see a video of that. Well, we have video, we've got a blog. I probably have on my iPad in the booth. I can find it. You can see it more. But yeah.
The more complicated stuff gets more bars, and they have to. The more complicated stuff, there are more bars stretched across, and they go back and forth, and it takes 2 people to warp.
Or more. Yeah. Many more.
I would just add a comment. I'm like Marilyn. Any of you want to see a rather incredible scaffold? I have a picture on my phone of a textile about this big that is scaffold woven in 1-inch blocks. So.
Another question over here.
So it sounds like it has some connection to clasped weft and clasped warp. Is that correct? For anybody who knows that. So when you weave the weft, is it actually doubled? Because with clasped weft, normally your threads come in, cross, go back out, and so every shed has a double thread of the weft yarn.
Yeah, Marilyn just said no.
No.
They're singles, not doubles.
Okay, I'll have to think about that.
I'm a visual person. I need video too.
Okay, any other questions?
Questions for vendors? Oh, we got one back here.
As a new vendor, I would like to ask you guys who have special relationships with families and individuals who weave and who you represent, whether you ever mess with the design. Do you give suggestions? Because of that meet the market demand, I would love to know like how exactly you handle that.
I think Ricky would like to answer that one.
Well, in my case, we talk mostly about color combinations. Central Asia is one of those places where there's no such thing as too many colors or colors that don't go together. And they're beautiful, but they don't necessarily sell in the market. So we'll talk about color combinations. We'll talk about taking a piece of a larger design rather than the original very busy, very detailed design because they tend to sell better. But my attitude has always been that I want the local people to be the designers, and we just talk about what's likely to be more saleable in the market but still preserves the integrity of the original designs.
And certain items as well, like the coca purses tend to be a certain size. And they have these little monederas, little money ones, and I'm thinking like, make those cell phone size. And these are the sizes. And we came up with snaps for them. So things like that, the long strings, the T-snows that are used to tie their belts on, let's make them into eyeglass leashes. So just trying to have, like your iPhone case, that, or whatever, iPad case, just to try to help size and color. They're the same on color. I don't know if I help on that. They do what they do, but yeah, make me something turquoise, yeah.
And Bob.
This may be a leading question, but could you describe the cultural significance of that lovely chumpy that you didn't show us? You know, the inner band and what it's made of?
So this is a, yeah, sure. This is, they call it a chumpi, which is a cummerbund. And this is actually Sam's personal one. This is not for sale, but go ahead and open it up to show. This inner, so this is the complex weaving of the women. This is the inner, really stiff belt. It's a knotted process that the men do. And for example, for a wedding, a man will make this, the woman will weave this for each of them. And the black is, especially for ones like that, it's the woman's hair. And they don't sell these. I mean, we have them because we're family, but the white is the sheep's wool, but the black is a woman's hair that's spun. It could be mixed with sheep too, I don't know. But, and it's, that's a very stiff thing. And mine, it's nice that they're narrower for a woman. It kind of acts as a bra, kind of holds me up, It's like, oh, get underneath it, It's really funny. But yeah, so that's that. And you just tie the strings around. The men's have tassels on the end that they tie and let hang down. The women's, you tuck the tassels in. Yeah. So, thanks for.
Thank you. All right, we good? Or do we have any more questions?
Good afternoon. Welcome to the next hour of vendor presentations. We have a couple more vendors presenting today, so it's going to be a limit of 6 minutes per person. So we're going to be clap, clap, right along. And also, if you have questions today, what I would like you to do is go visit the vendors afterwards and ask them your questions, because after the vendors are done presenting, we have a door prize drawing for some beautiful things donated by our vendors. So with that, I'm going to invite our first person up, Lynn, to come and talk about her gorgeous doll dresses.
In person. My name's Lynn Person. I have a background of 32 years working in natural resources and environmental protection. I took my first trip to Guatemala back in 1995 or something. My husband has an antique shop, ethnographic. He's a collector of whatever he happens to want to collect at the moment, basically. Well, we went to Guatemala and and he started collecting Guatemalan textiles. It was fun. I love them. But I didn't want to spend as much time buying as he did. Our roles have now reversed. I had a Girl Scout troop, and at that time, because I was a canoe instructor, and they all, that's how I ended up I don't have a daughter or anything, it just ended up. I live in Madison, Wisconsin, and that's where Pleasant Rowland started the Pleasant Company, which some of you may know, others not. It was a great idea when it started. She basically was a teacher and had historical dolls and called American Girl Doll. They were all 18-inch. And they had books that went along with the dolls, dresses and accessories and such things. And so all my Girl Scouts, their mothers and grandmothers were paying such an incredible amount. So that's the background. I went down and I had this idea that maybe I got to know a lot of families down there, and I talked with the kids and played with the kids and stuff while my husband was buying. I had an idea that, okay, with this doll, maybe there might be an option for creating a business. So I actually walked into the Pleasant Company cold with a 2-page proposal saying you should go south of the border. This was before Josefina existed, which is the Mexican. And they said, we don't get from anything else. No. So I decided I'd have to do it. It took 2 to 3 years to get from the beautiful Huipils to something that actually fit the doll or more. The doll has a gringo head, so of course it doesn't fit over the head. Has an ugly neckline, so that was an issue as well. I knew nothing about weaving. My grandmother did embroidery from Sweden, so I appreciated the work, but I just didn't know anything. So after 2 or 3 years, I finally got, the first time I had this idea, I just walked down with the bolsa filled with a doll that was the American Girl Doll Josefina, and also a Target. And of course, everybody said, wow, look at that. And I had it fit with little clothes. And those that were really interested, I started to talk with the families and the weavers in the markets. And I started out with about 5 families. I'm only up to about 15 now, extended families, like Juana, whose family makes this, has at least 95 descendants, last I heard. So there's always somebody in the family that wants to weave more, as for whatever reason they need it. So if anybody knows people that have ideas for markets, everybody of those families wants to make more than I know how to sell. But it worked. When I first started, there was the Guatemalan Adoptions, which has its own story. But that got me linked with families that had a lot of interest in Guatemala. My
going is right in January or February, right when school starts. And my idea was, I knew I couldn't support anybody or a group or anything, but I could help right when they needed school supplies. I could put an order in, pay half down, and then come back the next year, pay the other half, and hopefully I had what I ordered, and not 3 times as much or half as much, and the right size head. And so that's evolved. It's still a lot of fun. The 7-year-olds that I first met are now weaving some of the Wipils, the doll Wipils that I have. And so it's a very, I keep in touch with the families now because of all the wonderful technology we have, and the matriarchs and all don't know it. I've got 1 minute. I also want to respect Mayan traditions. They had a doll at that time, and I partnered with them to create some things. I am 72, and I'm interested in, if anybody's interested in a successor for doll clothes, I'm interested in finding some people. I must admit, American Girl doll has gone downhill in terms of the interest at this point, but sadly. But I think there's, as we talk about the importance of bridging generations and bridging cultures, having things that really attract kids is really important. And so that was part of my ideas, that the Girl Scouts I had learned about Guatemala and what it was. And the kids that I was dealing with learned. Oh, and I also have these. That's another story.
Thank you, Lynn. Carol Lee, you're up.
Well, my textile journey started at age 6 when I was weaving potholders and selling them around the neighborhood. And then I wound up getting a Girl Scout weaving badge way back when. Okay. And then my weaving and textile took a hiatus for about 40 years or more when I got into music and went to college on a flute scholarship and so forth. It took me 17 years to get my bachelor's degree because my husband kept holding me back at that time. So I got divorced with him and moved to Columbia so I could finish my degree. And then after I finished my degree, I decided to take a class just for the fun of it, which was a spinning class, which I learned how to spin. And my spinning teacher then invited me to go to a heritage kind of place to learn about the natural dyes, to assist her in doing natural dyeing with plants and so forth. So I fell in love with native plants and getting color from them. And one thing led to another, and then I started weaving and joined a Weavers Guild and so forth. But anyway, and one thing led to another, and so I started a business in '82 on selling my things, and then people started asking me, how do you do that? So I started, okay, in '86, we developed a Hill Creek Fiber Studio, which took on all kinds of classes in spinning and weaving and dyeing. And one thing led to, anyway, I feel really blessed that all 3 of my children are involved in our business. My son builds the looms that we sell. My oldest daughter has developed her own knitting business. She's worked with me throughout her adolescence and so forth. And my youngest daughter is a photographer who's done all the photography for my 2 books that I've written. Where was I going to go with that? Okay. What? Okay. One of the things my connection with other cultures, I took a class on Navajo weaving from Noel Bennett back in '83. And that led me to an interest in Navajo weaving, so I took a class from Sarah Natani at a conference, a weaving conference, back in California. And that, what I was wearing yesterday was inspired by her on weaving a vest on the Navajo loom, which I hadn't heard of anybody else having done that before. And my youngest daughter went with me. Actually, I attended several times on the reservation with Sarah Natani. And then she wound up starting to come to my studio 16 years in a row to teach Navajo weaving. So we built quite a relationship there. My youngest daughter, Rose, and I went for 8 days for a mother-daughter teacher exchange where I taught her daughter, Tanaba, how to weave on the floor loom, and she taught my daughter how to do the pottery using Anasazi chards and grind them up and so forth, and clay and so forth. Anyway, that's a whole nother story. But anyway, so that started my interest in working with other cultures. What I have here is not with other cultures, but one of the things we were introduced to when I took a class with my oldest daughter, Bex, with Paula Simmons, who introduced, well, it was a weaving with your hand spun yarns. And for the first 2 people who finished their projects, we got to explore a large triangle that our host's husband had thrown together on broomstick handles and whatever. I fell in love with the concept of continuous strand weaving. And in doing research for writing the book about that subject, I learned that that technique probably went back to medieval England or even Viking time period. But anyway, it's a very simple way of weaving. You don't have to thread a loom. You just start weaving on one corner, and you weave across to the other corner, go around that nail there, and come back again. So you put in 2 warp threads, and then you start weaving loops down from the top. And when you weave the loop down, you open up the loop to the other side of the loom, and you're putting in 1 more warp thread and 2 weft threads at the same time. Oh boy, okay. So one thing led to another. My son makes all the looms and so forth. He's the woodworker in the family. So people started asking for different shapes, so we came up with the square loom and then the rectangle loom. This was done on the rectangle loom, which adjusts to 25 different sizes of shapes. And then the small looms with the little triangles and squares. Little triangles and squares, you can put this up. And then we've got a washcloth loom and potholder things with all natural dyes and so forth. Oh, shit. Okay. I was going to tell you about my oldest daughter and I have been to, well, actually my youngest daughter went to France for an international dyers conference, and I was wearing this at the time, and some little ladies come running up to me and said, I recognize that pattern. It's from the South Sea Islands, and their community wove these patterns. And so they had to, this is in France, by the way, so they had to have pictures taken with me. And since then, I've been on a couple textile tours, and this one was to Oaxaca. And this purple dye was done with the purr snail. Thank you. Thank you, Carolyn.
You know, there are so many good stories that everybody in this organization has. It's so hard to cut people off, but I'm being mean, and I'm going to make sure we do it. So next, Svetlana.
Ačiū labai, kad mane priėmėte ir jūsų organizacija, aš labai dėkinga, kad jūs man padėsite dabar papasakoti apie mano šalį. Do we have a translator, Marin? Okay, so this is Lithuanian, this is what it sounds like, and I'm showing you in the marketplace the work of my friend Virginia, who is a very accomplished weaver, who has a small studio in Vilnius, Lithuania. And I met her at a market in Vilnius 2 years ago. I grew up in the capital of Lithuania and always admired my mom's clothes that was linen. And when I was a little girl, I couldn't wear any linen that was woven or knitted because I was a very active child, climbing everywhere. And linen that is knitted, it does not wear well. However, when I turned 17 and I was about to go to college, I received a dress as a present that was tailored and knitted, machine knitted. But that was a very special dress, and I still have that linen dress as a lampshade. I used the skirt as a lampshade in my apartment in Palo Alto, in my house in Palo Alto, California. So we'll go back to Virginia and linen, because the history of linen is actually very interesting in Lithuania. You probably have heard of Lithuanian linen, just like the French or Italian linen or Irish linen. It has a climate for it. But just like Ricky was describing the changing economy of cotton and silk and embroidery in the former, in the Middle Asian, in the Silk Road countries, newly formed countries, during the, when Lithuania became independent, a lot of flax fields were actually claimed for agricultural use. And so they grow less and less flax since that time. Now, some of those fields are starting to get reclaimed to linen. However, it's not many. And the manufacturing of the linen threads and woven material that comes out of Lithuania is sent all over, exported all over the world. And so this is just a little bit about what it's like. Virginia makes her dresses in a very, very special engineered way. This particular one combines linen and wool. However, this one is completely pure linen and woven all the way. This is a continuous piece of fabric. So it's woven, it's engineered on the loom. Some of them do have a waistline and a skirt. The pattern changes, and it's a different, maybe weft, and looks a little more sculptured, just like on the blue dress. And then the only hole that she cuts out, the only waist, is really the neckline. And they come in V shape or a round one. She's quite proud of her selvages, and she only overlaps them, so there is no waist whatsoever. So thinking about helping her to sell in the United States led me to host a couple of sales in my backyard. And so when they were asking about vendors, I told Maren that honestly, this is my first time, so I'm not sure I can do it, but it's working fine. It's very, very enjoyable to tell you about Lithuanian linen. Because I wanted to promote handmade clothing, just like Sonora was telling us yesterday, I actually came up with a project that is a collaborative project between Lithuania and Japan. Japan is an old love and interest of mine just from reading. I grew up in a country where I couldn't travel. And so the first opportunity presented itself just 10 years ago when I saw some very, very traditional crafts in Japan. And one of the two artisans actually surprised me so much that I started thinking about linen and how to combine the two cultures that I'm so much in love with. And so one of the artisans that I'm working with is Sashiko Stitcher, whose son lives in the United States in Pennsylvania. And then the other one is actually using kogin sashi. It's a special stitching that looks like weaving on Lithuanian sashes. And so what we're doing is actually bringing Lithuanian linen that has been woven by Virginia to Japanese stitchers, and we give them a chance to stitch on it. And we'll be presenting this project during New York Textile Month in September. And it has been quite a rocky journey. This is month number 8. It's a little bit like pregnancy, very, very unpredictable, and a lot of waiting and excitement, and at the same time nervousness. That's all.
Thank you so much. That was lovely linen. Next up is Suzanne.
Thanks. I'm so happy that I have the mic in my size, like in my height. I'm so nervous to present for the first time in English because I'm a speaker Spanish speaker, sorry. And I live in Guatemala. I work with more than 45 artisans in my home country. I live close to a volcano, 10 minutes from a volcano in Quetzaltenango, so close to the border with Mexico. And since I have memory, I always wanted to do something in my community, pretty active on the community. And I was sharing with Nicole, that is here with me, that when I was 16, I began a program for writing and reading in my community. It's a rural community. And I began with a group of 15 women, and I ended with one woman. And she learned how to write her name and sign and read in a basic. And on that time, on my 16th, I always believed that I had the privilege to study in Guatemala and to prepare myself to be a professional. So I always remind myself, when you grow up, you have to do something that impacts Guatemalan women. And that's what brings me here today with you. And I feel so honored to be surrounded such a nice group. So today in the table, we have a proud work of these 45 women from Coban, Chichicastenango, and Quiché, Sololá, San Marcos. We work with different artisans because for them it's also an income that break the circle, and they are able to bring their kids to the school. And I am so amazed how the talent of these artisans, the weavers, they make an amazing products. And for me, in my background with marketing, the best thing, my effort is always to bring the products presented with my smile and say, please, this is a good place to support. And this is how we believe it can be a good way for them, because they take training. We train them for different skills. They also find a community, and I think that's my highlight point here in my notes, how amazing it is to have a community. And this is something that I really want to share with you, that our weavers and artisans in this program that we work, they found a community that they can really speak about their problems, their journey, their kids. And when we pack products to bring here to the United States, it is a magical moment because they share with each other, even if they live like far away, they come to a place to pack their products with like this emotion in their eyes, and they bring like, oh, my daughter now is in 4th grade, and with this smile, and this, without they knowing, this feed the team to become better professionals, to open opportunities for these artisans. So I hope to see you all in the table from Friendship Bridge over there, and you will see some different techniques of weaving. We also have amazing products, so if you want to have a small present from the event, please visit us. And thank you so much for the space.
We are ahead of schedules by 2 minutes and 5 seconds. So next is Kathy.
But I won't claim those 2 minutes, please. So I'm happy to be up here today to tell you about how I got here. I grew up surrounded by textiles, color and form, and my mother was she loved furniture design and moved furniture around even into her 90s. She was, I think the couch would be better over there, she'd say, and drape it with a color. So I grew up with textiles. I learned embroidery. I learned needlepoint. I sewed clothes. I sewed costumes. But I didn't know there was a world. You know, it's just what I did, and it wasn't culturally connected. So I didn't know there was a community of people who worked with their hands in this way, and that affected their posture and their sense of self and who they were and what they saw. So it was just something I did. I went to college. I dropped out a couple times. I ended up working in healthcare for 30 years and then got bitten by the bug by chance, and went to Guatemala with a wonderful textile artist, a tapestry weaver, Aiko Kobayashi Gray. I've been saying her name, bringing it in. She's Mari Gray's mother, and she's very dramatic and magnetic. And so I went to Guatemala without any preparation, except she had said, bring an empty duffel bag. Now, that was an understatement because, you know, I came back. I can see myself in the airport trying to check in, and they say, no, 52.4. So I pull out a corte and wrap it around my neck, and that one isn't enough. So I have to, like, do another one to get on the plane. So I bring back cortes to sew with. And what I have created is a very small business powered by my own time at the sewing machine. My daughter occasionally helps with the napkins. My time at the sewing machine, deciding what each corte will do best for. So I brought 2 examples and things that, 3 examples. All right, so there's the jacket, the coat. There is a market bag. And what has been so much fun for me is figuring out ways to, I don't know, to make each item special. So I learned that you can use leaves together and they make a lovely arrangement. And I've learned what weights of corte work for different things. This is also a new product. And I say that sort of with a joke because, you know, it's a dish towel, please, with a wooden spoon. And the wooden spoons are new. They're from Santiago Atitlan from my last trip. And the wooden spoon is made from coffee root. And so I love the idea of a wooden spoon accompanying a dish towel. And this dish towel is special because it was left over from a jacket, and it's probably the jacket that's on the rack in the room. It has the benefit of a beautiful embroidery on top, which is a ronda. And so I love to explain that the ronda is the embroidery that connects 2 pieces of fabric. I can't leave this to show you, but 2 pieces of foot loom woven fabric to make it the right length of a skirt. So it goes to waist to ankle. And sometimes, you know, for us, it could be seamed. It's just to bring things together. But the most beautiful ones are this incredible piece of embroidery. So I'm learning which ones work with my pieces and which ones are gorgeous, but they're not going to work. So I've had a lot of fun doing this. I find that I think my life is in my fingertips. If you want to talk to me, let me touch what you're wearing, or something about fingertips. And I have a memory of this is silly to say, I have a memory of my sister and me as little girls, and what we did to lull ourselves to sleep was this little fingertip riff on fabric or animals, and it's still there. That's what I love about this used garment textile, that it's been worn, it's been washed, it's been dried on the rocks. People say, can I wash it? It was washed in the lake and dried on a rock. Yes, you can wash it. And it's smooth and it has a texture, and you can see the weave. So I'm not a weaver, but I appreciate it. And I think old fabrics are, they're a wealth of message, and so that's what I love about this. And I find, at one point I found a woman I could trade her scraps for Spanish conversation. So my Spanish conversation in 1 minute is that long, really. It's not long, but she loved the scraps and made things with the scraps. So it's all based around this kind of textile. So it brings me here, and that's a pleasure, and I love telling you all about what I make. So thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Great story, well told. Next up is Yolanda.
Gracias y buenas tardes. So much fun to be here again. Last year was my first year here at Warp. How did we not know about Warp? But that's always the question that we ask after we kind of join the fold. My mother is Guatemalan. My father was Peruvian, and I was born in Manhattan. But I grew up in Guatemala till I was 5, and then I ended up in Elmira, New York, when my mother remarried, and after my father's death. So I was always, and she had a deal with my stepfather. Every other summer, my daughter and I go to Guatemala because she needs to maintain her Spanish, she needs to know her family, and she needs to grow up with her culture. And so that's what we did. He was always welcome to come, but he didn't very often come. But that is really where I was exposed, although we lived in Guatemala City, and this was in the 50s and the 60s. My mother brought with her to the United States when she came back a full indumentaria. It used to be called traje, but traje has a negative connotation in Guatemala because people would say things like, ay, ella es de traje, and it would be kind of a put down. So now the indumentaria, now the Mayan population prefers to say that it's indumentaria Maya. So it kind of covers the whole thing, but it kind of gets away from that word that had been in the past so derogatory. And I remember talking to a friend of mine from Santiago, Atitlan, and he owned a store in Santiago, and he said, oh, he always had his indumentaria on in Santiago, and he told me, when I go into the city, I never, ever wear my traditional dress, and men traditionally don't wear very often, but he was very proud of his traditional clothing, but he said, I never wear it when I go into the city because of many different connotations. And he had been through the war as well. Previous to the war, there were so many co-ops in Guatemala. But during the 80s and 90s, when it got very intense, they were targeted. So they kind of dissolved or went underground. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit about my journey. And so when my godmother, God bless her, and my mother knew that I loved everything típico. I just loved it, and not everybody else in my family was enamored, but I was. And so for my 15th birthday, my mother gave me a huipil from Nebac, which has always been one of my favorite places in the world. And I started to collect right about that age, not really knowing very much about it, but the museum, the Museo Ixchel, del Traje Indígena, as it's called, had started in Guatemala City, and I would go every year and try to learn about it. And I continued to collect. And in 1998, and I did get the newsletter for the Friends of the Ixchel Museum, and at some point in 1998, the Longwood Gardens came to me and said, could you put up an exhibit of Guatemalan textiles? We have this exhibit in I don't know if you know about Longwood Gardens, but they have a beautiful ballroom. And I said, oh yes, of course. And then I went to the ballroom and I went, oh my God. And the newsletter arrived, and I noticed that there were people in Philadelphia, and I literally, became a member and wrote on the envelope, could you please call me? And so that was my first exhibit, and we curated an exhibit together with our own collections. And since then, I've been associated with the Friends of the Ixchel Museum on their board. And I agree with you guys that we should only be on the board for 6 years. Anyway, but the Friends do sponsor several things. We have a newsletter, and you can sign up with me. You can get it electronically or snail mail. I just got this in. This is the Spring 2024 newsletter, so I'll have it there, and you can pick it up. And I have other ones as well. We did a Instagram challenge of people who had been inspired by Guatemalan textiles. And it's online as well. We didn't give out any prizes. The first time we did it, 60 people sent works that were inspired by Guatemalan textiles in different media, not just fiber, but also different media. So that's been one of our things that we've done. And we're down to a minute. We also fund field research that results in exhibits and publications. These are bilingual. And if you want to know some more in-depth information about your textiles, that's a place to go. And we also do school programs, which Jenny and Flori have been involved in. We do demonstrations, we do school exhibits, and we also have an exhibit that we're looking for medium-sized museums to partner with us. This one was at San Jose Museum of Quilt and Textiles. So if you have a museum near you, or you're a part of a museum, and you'd like to partner with us in some way, we would love to do that. Our weavers are here in the United States, so we can provide programming as well to you by having a weaver with demonstrations and things. So that's the Friends of the Ixchel, and we don't sell too much things of woven things, but our weavers do, and I hope that you'll come by and see if you can add to your collection.
Okay, Sam, are you here? Oh, marvelous. You ready? Okay, come on up.
Hello. Actually, I didn't bring, I didn't prepare a lot for my speech, but I just would like to share with the journey that how I know rap and how I just get into the crafts. Actually, the journey started from the pandemic time. When I was in the 2019, I was actually doing a final dissertation on the sustainability of the fashion, because I was doing the fashion business management in the UK. Before that, I have like 9 years experience doing the fast fashion merchandising. So yeah, there's a lot of topic around the like a sustainability fashion when we do the master degree. So at that time, I was like more interested in the traditional slow fashion, and at that time, I was started to know about like the different topics around the sustainability. So I choose the topic of the traditional crafts of China. So I did a lot of research. At that time, I get an opportunity to do an internship for a New York brand called Angel Chang. She is actually working with the artisans in Guizhou doing the production for her new brands collection. So I was like doing internship for her for the product management. I do a lot of connection with the local artisans. So I started to know the community and I connected with them. I feel like that the experience is quite moving because the artisans are so nice to talk with. Even though I'm not based in China at that time, I was based in the UK, and the Angel Chang is based in the New York. So there is a lot of like different time zone working at that time. So I started to know the community, how the Chinese artisan crafts industry looks like. When I back to Shanghai, I started to you know, while I was like find a new job to survive myself, is still in the fast fashion. At that time, I was doing like working as a brand manager in the showroom, like manage all the like fast fashion brands at that time. So this is quite a tricky part because I was always like working in the fast fashion, but while I was attached by the traditional crafts, meanwhile as a side job. So this is quite conflict at that time. But yeah, surviving is also quite harsh. I have to choose like a trade-off juggling. So I was, one side I was like traveling a lot to the Guizhou region, where has a lot of the ethnic minorities there, and where is the production coming from for the Angel Chang. I met with the artisans there, so I was like traveling while I was working. But at the end of the time, I was also like in my mind build up the business model that to see how I can support the artisans. So in this period, I do like a business training and also field research to gradually promote my like a startup projects. Last year, I find myself I have to be full-time working on that project. So I just quit my job and I relocate to Guizhou so I can get like a closer to the artisans. More and you know to get to their crafts more and probably learn in the workshop of their embroidery and also the textile woven and also different kind of batik. I have to contribute full-time myself to be there. Otherwise, I feel like it's too remote. When I'm based in Shanghai, it's like a 2 and 3 hours flight to the Guizhou. It's not like, you know, the field research cannot fulfill me to fully understand what they are doing. So that's the reason why I have to quit my job and relocate there. I was quite like a stick on the plane from the last year, August. So this is not like a very long journey, but I still like quite, every time I met the local artisans, I just feel like that I so attached by their lifestyle and their like passion about the crafts and also their the pure authentic personality. And everything is like so attached to me. So I so much so believe in what I'm doing. And also at that time during the research, I know WAP, this community. So I was quite lucky to be selected as one of the scholarship winner to be here because a long trip. And I actually I don't know if the previous like annual meeting have the Chinese like vendors here. No, right? So I'm so honored and I really appreciate this opportunity to be here. Yeah, I'm very lucky to be chosen as the, you know, as the one of the volunteer to be here, and also the vendor booth to be here, and also am very lucky to be selected by the crafts, or I selected I select the crafts industry to have this journey together. Yeah. Thank you. Sorry, I haven't been display what I have. Actually, I'm quite attracted by the artisans. It's also their heritage wisdom. So this is actually their wedding head cuff. So this is like a cross stitching because for example, the Mo, probably some of you heard of that ethnic minority. So the Mo have a lot of branches in China, and they have different craft techniques. This is like a cross stitching, and this is for their wedding head cuff. So there are too many motifs. It's so beautifully made by them. And also in this a small bag, they have different embroidery techniques. It's like a braid techniques, embroidery, and also the cross stitching techniques. So they incorporate diverse embroidery skills into the small bags. It's so attractive to me. Yeah, and also this one, I know that a lot of people, sorry, last one. I know a lot of people that are so attracted by the batik because it's so intricate. Yeah, so yeah, I'm very happy that a lot of people like this kind of batik style, and I'm very happy that I bring this one here to show everybody. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. And I'm last, so I will keep to my time. Hold on, here we go. Start. Okay. I'm Maren Beck. I have been traveling to Laos and Vietnam for 19 years, having a business buying textiles from artisans in Laos and Vietnam for 17. Have a huge number of friends there. And most of you have heard a little bit about me, and so what I've decided to do is not talk about me, but instead talk about the motifs that are present in all of the textiles that I have fallen in love with and have collected. So I thought I would show you these things, and I'm gonna see if I can get the microphone over so people can still hear. So this is one of my favorite styles of textiles from Laos. This is called a man-woman healing cloth, and the pattern is the same on both sides, but this is the man's side for coloring, and this is the woman's side for coloring, more complex and beautiful. So what I wanted to show you, and I'll show you on the woman's side because it's clearer, there is a mythological creature called a Nak or Nyok, but I'll call it a Naga because everybody can understand that better, but it's a mythological river serpent. This one is a two-headed mythological river serpent. Here is one triangle head with a mouth, and its body comes around over to another head. So what you've got is a two-headed mythological river serpent, and then here is another one with a diamond head, and its body comes around and does the same thing. And with Lao textiles, everything is woven in mirror image up the entire textile so that you can use the same pattern template over and over. But when you vary the colors, it's hard to see that it's exactly the same pattern. But the thing about the Naga is it is the mythological river serpent is perceived as being a female spirit, and it makes its home under the villages, lives in the rivers. The rivers irrigate the rice fields, and rice is life. Therefore, it's a female spirit. So you will find Naga in almost all of the textiles from northeastern Laos because women weave them. And the Naga is so vital. So for example, whenever anybody tells you it's time to come eat, they say kin cow, and kin is eat, cow is rice. So if you want to eat, it's eat rice is how you're invited. So that's all tied to the Naga. Another primary motif in the region is called a songhong, or a mythological elephant bird. So this one is filled with the mythological elephant birds. You can see a head of the elephant here, the trunk comes down, It has 4 bird feet, and there's the body, and it is pregnant with a 2-headed naga. And there's another little baby bird underneath, and this one has a spirit tree on its back. And these are all little baby nagas that are crests on the top of the head of the Songhong, or mythological elephant bird. And the elephant is a more fierce jungle spirit, political strength that's considered more of a male spirit. The bird is the Hong bird, whose belly is a rainbow. So when you see rainbow stripes, like with these flowers, that represents the Hong bird. And so you have a balance in this textile of both the male and female spirits. And so if a shaman is using this textile, the shaman can invoke the spirits that are woven in. How am I doing on timing? Halfway. Invoke the spirits that are in this to help reach the ancestor world, to bring back an ancestor spirit to help with the healing. So all of the textiles from Lao, whether they're skirts or scarves or anything it happens to be, are all filled with this mythological creatures, because that's the spiritual protection that is provided for whoever is wearing them. I'm going to move on to a couple other cultures that are very different. This handbag was made from the legs, from the legs, embroidered legs of a Red Zhao woman's pants. And so the Red Zhao are very famous and very proud of their embroidery. And you will see Red Zhao women embroidering all over the place. This came from northern Vietnam, and within this, this particular group does the embroidery based upon the features that are around the world they live in. So they've got little birds. There are, these right here are cat paw prints. I've also read somewhere that it's fighting cats, and you can see all these paws out around the centerpiece. I love that one. Here is a rattan basket pattern. This motif, for the life of me, can never remember. Apologies. And these are little bushes that grow along the side of the trail when people are walking around. And then these are male and female trees going across the top. And this is either a pine tree, or depending on how I managed to read the pattern from people, it could also be the silver flowers that are worn in the headdresses of the bride and groom as they get married. So all of that is represented in a woman's pair of pants. This is from the Black Mong in Northwest Vietnam. This is about, okay, stop. I'm gonna take 30 seconds. I know. Okay, I'm bad. So anyhow, this is about 50 years old. Belonged to, or was woven embroidered by the mother of a good friend. But one of the motifs here is a diamond on a diamond on a diamond, and it represents the mountains where people live, or the one great spirit, or the hearth of the home. And this one has, you see the batik pattern. This is also Hmong. That's a dream pattern. And so people will put on their clothing what they wish for themselves. So there we go. The presentation from the vendors is complete.